Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. There are so many new people that have decided to join our little community that I just want to reintroduce myself. My name is Shawn Marie and I am a stay-at-home nana that lives near Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. So today, if you're wondering what this background is, we are up in my studio slash office, and this is where I come to do all of my creative funness. It's also a big craft room where I have all of my sewing machines, my embroidery machines, you name it, this is the art studio where it all happens. For this week's episode of the Canuary Chronicles, From My Kitchen to Yours, I am going to be reviving a once very popular, now considered retro dish that you just don't see a lot of or hear a lot of. But back in its day, it was a pretty big deal, and that is Steak Diane. Now, for those that might not be familiar with Steak Diane, let me just give you a little background on this dish. Steak Diane originally came from a concept somewhere in London in the 1930s. Originally cooked tableside and sometimes flambéed with brandy or cognac, it became a staple in continental cuisine. From around 1940 to 1960, kind of fizzled out there. But until that point, this could be found in so many upscale restaurants all throughout the world. Now, recipes vary slightly for this dish, but Steak Diane is basically a sauce that you would apply to steak or to veal, actually. I don't eat veal. I never have. I never will. In essence, this sauce is a creamy peppered sauce that's made with brandy and Worcestershire sauce and mustard, a good Dijon mustard. And all of that combined with the other ingredients creates this wonderful flavor explosion. It's bold, it's different, and they all cohesively hang out together in this dish. It is totally fabulous and definitely not bland. Now, one of my staple rules when I am cooking with brandy or with a type of wine is I buy good stuff. You don't want to buy the cheap stuff. It's going in your dish and you're going to consume it. So always buy a good liqueur or a good wine to use in your dishes. It really does make all the difference. You can use the cheap stuff too. It's going to come out. And if you're going through all of this trouble, you want to get the best flavor that you possibly can. So I only use good liqueurs or good wines when I'm cooking. The flavor profile created in this dish is just literally unexpected. It is not something that you would expect to come from a jar. And we all know how big I am about keeping those unexpected flavors on the shelf that you can take down and impress anybody, including yourself. This dish checks that off as well. It's just so good. I don't even know why this disappeared from continental cuisine or from menus all around the world. When it is time to consume it and make it, you do have to add one additional ingredient to it when you're heating it up. And that's simply a 1/4 cup of heavy cream. You mix that in with everything. That's what gives it that delicious creaminess, thickens it up. You could also add a little slurry if you wanted to thicken it up more than what the cream will do. And you can use an arrowroot powder, which is what I like to use, or you could use a cornstarch. Wouldn't necessarily use a flour in that because it's going to still have that raw flour taste. You're not really cooking it in the pan with anything. I don't like the raw flour taste. Now, for those that might be looking at this and going, oh my gosh, you're going to add a cup of brandy and you're worried about serving this to children or to people who don't drink, don't worry at all. Whenever you use liquor or wine to cook, you're actually cooking the alcohol completely out of it. And the only thing that you're left with is the taste, which I can assure you, cooked brandy that has no more alcohol content in it tastes nothing like raw brandy that you would put in a drink of some sort. I don't even know what you would mix brandy with. I don't drink brandy. But I do like it in this dish. The flavor of it changes completely and it just becomes this added richness. It just really comes together nicely and it makes all the difference. You could use cognac if that's what you have. I don't have any cognac. I have brandy that I purchased for specifically cooking with, so that's what I'm going to use. I still have some left. Perfect. I am going to include a link in the video description below that will take you over to my blog where you can get the printable version of the recipe and step-by-steps. I do this because I have RA and I cannot write things down. I can, but it's very painful for me to write things down, and I can truly appreciate it when something is just so easy. I can just click, 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 print, and I have it. And that's what I keep in mind when I do this for everybody, so that you can very easily obtain this recipe and just add it to your collection at home. Now, this recipe is a hot pack recipe, which means everything that we are going to start with is going to be hot. Our jars will be hot, the contents going in them will be hot, and our canner is already going to be hot and ready to go. This is a very important step to remember, especially to avoid thermal breakage, which you don't want. You're spending all this time getting everything ready. You want to make sure it goes smoothly and correctly. And for this recipe, again, I'm going to be using wide mouth jars. I'm only using the wide mouth jars because I have them and it's easier to get the meat out of the jars. If you only have a standard size jar, that's totally fine. It just might take a little extra effort getting it in and getting it out, but no worries. A canning jar is a canning jar. It's just all about the ease of in and out after that makes the difference. Let's go down in the kitchen and get this going. I'm going to start this recipe in my main kitchen in my house because that's what's stocked. That's where all of my equipment is right now. Haven't gotten necessarily everything I need for the downstairs, so right now we'll prepare it upstairs, but we're going to go right down to my little vintage kitchen after, and that's where we will process it. And it's a good thing I have that little vintage kitchen today. It is a snowy, cold New England day. And I'm not complaining because we really haven't had much snow. It's super pretty to look at, but oh my goodness, it's the perfect day to stay in and celebrate Canuary some more. Be smothered in this delicious Diane sauce, but for the purposes of canning, I'm actually going to be using a roast. And I've learned through my canning that you don't have to buy really expensive cuts of meat. You can buy the cheaper cuts of meat because the processing turns even shoe leather into cotton candy. So here I'm just using London broil and I'm slicing them up into like medallions about a half an inch thick, which is perfect for this recipe. I have a wicked hot cast iron skillet waiting with a little bit of melted coconut oil inside, and I'm going to put the medallions in there and just do them in very small batches, quick minute on each side. I'm just trying to get that beautiful color and texture from the caramelization of the hot pan onto the meat. That's actually flavor that it brings to the meat, as well as it makes the meat look prettier. I don't want to just can up raw beef. I want it to have the texture and that color of the caramelization from the hot pans, the stripes and the striations, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to remove it from the pan and set it aside as soon as it is done. Now I'm going to actually add the brandy to that hot skillet, and I'm going to use one of my wooden utensils and scrape up all of those delicious bits of meat and caramelized meat that are actually stuck to the bottom of the pan. You definitely don't want to leave any of that behind. That is absolutely delicious flavor. So I'm going to make sure that I get all of that up using brandy. And this also cooks the alcohol out of the brandy. This is part of the process. It's also going to do it in the canner, but this is also cooking the alcohol out, and it will reduce down a little bit as well, which is totally fine. Now in a stock pot, I'm going to add my meat, my pan drippings with brandy, some diced sweet onions, garlic, some diced up shallots, some coarsely ground Dijon mustard, and some Worcestershire sauce. I'm going to mix it all up good and let it boil for 5 minutes. To my stock pot, I'm going to add a mixture of beef broth and tomato paste that I whisked together. I'm going to stir that up real good and let it come back to a boil. Once it does, I'm going to boil it again for 5 more minutes. Do the face. We're going to help Nana can. What's the kitty say? Mama. You're so cute. All right, the timer went off. It is time to jar these up. My jars have been sitting with the hot water in them, keeping them nice and hot so that they will be ready to accept the very hot contents that we have in here. I am going to fill the jars up 3/4 of the way with the meat. I'm going to use my spider strainer to do that. I love the spider strainer. And then I'm going to add the liquid back into there, leaving a 1-inch headspace. I'm going to take this out, get it in the jars, get them in the canner, and get this going. I wish you guys could smell the aromas that are in this pot. You can smell the Worcestershire sauce with the tomato and the sweetness of the brandy. And oh my Lord, is it so, so good. The cream just makes it better at the end. It is delicious. I cannot wait to get this going. So let's get it rolling. Are downstairs in my little vintage kitchen, ready to can. As you can see, my pot of water is nice and hot for these jars. I'm going to dump the remainder of my vinegar in there. That is not a necessary step. It just kind of keeps the jars clean and from getting spotted, which it still can happen, and that's totally fine. I just try to avoid it. Just under 5 pounds of London broil, only got me 3 quarts and an entire pint of the sauce. I can do so much with this. I'm going to absolutely can it up and keep it on my pantry shelves as well. We are not going to let this go. And because it is not advised to can with less than like 4 quart jars in there or a bunch of pints, I actually jarred up just a jar of water, and this is just going to take up the space in the pressure canner, which is actually super important for the canning process. I apologize if you can hear walking above us. I'm praying to the Lord that nobody flushes the toilet, because you're going to hear that completely loud where we are. But we are ready to put these jars in. Water's ready. Let's get our water jar in first. Look at this. How good does that look? Amazing, right? Look at all the bits and pieces. You can see all of the onions and the shallots in there. It's going to be delicious. And quite honestly, there is one thing I wanted to add to this that I forgot. A handful of the parsley from my garden. And now we are going to lock our lid in place. We're going to let the pressure build up inside, and we're going to let it vent. Remember, we need to see a nice stream coming out of the vent, a steady, nice stream, not smoke signals. We're not calling Pocahontas here. You need a steady shh coming out of there, and it will get to there. I'm hoping this time is going to be a little bit better on the electric burner, because if you remember, last week was the first time I actually used this for canning. This is week 2, and I kind of remember what I did with the dial, where I put it, how it responded, and I wrote it all down in my canning journal anyways, so I can refer back to that if I need to. So we just need this to come to pressure, and then we'll move on to our next steps. As you can see, there is a great steady stream coming out of that. So I am actually going to set my timer, 10 minutes. Once the 10 minutes is up, I'm going to pop my weight on it and wait for it to get to my PSI. If you are unsure of your PSI number, Google it. You need to know your elevation to find your PSI. It's a very important factor in canning. You have to can at your specified PSI for it to be done correctly. I picked up something at the thrift store the other day, and I was going to hold off on sharing and showing this, but my curiosity factor has gotten the better of me. And I'm almost positive someone out there will know what exactly this is, because I sure don't. For $3, I picked up this super cute enamel pot, but there is a lot to this pot. So you take the lid off, and then we have like a strainer tray that sits in there. And it sits on top of a colander, which sits on top of a pasta strainer, I think you would call it, which sits inside the pot. So my question, I'm hoping one of you fabulous people out there can answer, is what are these for? I know this is a strainer. I think this is a steamer, but I'm just not sure I completely understand the concept of this pot. So please, 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 if you know anything about this, please leave a comment below so I'll know exactly what it is and what it's for. I just thought it was the most darling little thing for just a few dollars. I just thought it would be a great addition to my vintage kitchen, but curiosity is really getting to me, and I don't know what it is. If you do, please tell me. It's been 10 minutes. Let's put our weight on. Now we just have to wait for this to come up to 11 PSI, and I'm going to process it for 90 minutes, 1 hour, 30 minutes. That's all I need. And then we're going to have some really good steak Diane. You all enjoying these incredible recipes so far that I'm sharing? You know, there's tons of comments I'm receiving. It's getting very hard to keep up with them. but I am eternally grateful for each and every one of you. That's for sure. That's a fact. I am very grateful for every single one of you. But jeez. Just when you think you have it under control, you don't. So I guess while I'm waiting for it to come up to pressure, I'm going to answer some of you fabulous people. I'll see you real soon. Our timer just went off, so I'm going to turn the stove off and just let this be. The gauge has to come down to 0 before you can touch it. The seal needs to go down in the front right here. There needs to be no more pressure inside of this vessel before you open it. So we're going to just let it be and come down to 0 on its own. It does take somewhere around 20-ish minutes or so. So go make yourself a cup of tea, answer some emails, whatever you need to do. Go watch more of my channel, and I will see you back here when it's time to take the jars out. I wish you could smell the smells down here. It's reminding me of something, and I can't think of what it is, but it is making me so hungry. And I mean like really, really, really hungry. So while you go catch some more of my channel, I'm gonna go eat something, and I'll meet you back in my kitchen when it's time to take the jars out. All the pressure's gone. We're down to 0. Can safely take that off. Twist it. Always open it away. Let's take a look at these jars. It smells so good. First, I'm just going to remove my water. This water looks crystal, crystal clear. There was no seepage whatsoever. Look at that. Ooh. Let's not forget our delicious jar of just Diane sauce. And this we will be able to use any way we want in any recipe we want. And I already have a few ideas for this. Perfect. Did you hear that? I love that sound. You can smell the tomato. You can smell the Worcestershire. You can smell... Oh, I love that sound. Could smell even a little bit of the shallot and onion. Everything just, it smells deep, and it smells bold, and it smells delicious. I wish. Oh, I wish you could smell this. So good. So now I am just going to leave my jars here. Once they are cool enough to handle, I am going to remove the rings. You do not want to store your jars with the rings on, because that can give you a false seal. The ring needs to be off so that you'll know if the seal worked. So as soon as I can handle them, I am going to remove that. Then I'm just going to leave them on the counter for the night. You just want to let them be. Check on them in the morning, check on the seals, make sure that everything has in fact sealed. If it hasn't, you need to put it in the fridge and use it within the next 5 days, or you could reprocess it. Now, quite honestly, I do not reprocess things. I find that that breaks down the proteins just too much, and it would turn the meat to mush, in my opinion. Just my opinion. So I would put it in the fridge and use it up. If everything is all sealed and they're ready to go on the pantry shelves, you just want to put the date on there, and you definitely want to mark on the lid as well to add a 1/4 cup of heavy cream when heating it up to serve. That's what makes it creamy, and that's what makes Steak Diane Steak Diane. Now, to serve this dish once it's ready, this goes absolutely fabulous with creamy, buttery mashed potatoes. The steak medallions are small enough where it will topple over the mashed potatoes. You could also use a buttermilk biscuit, slice that in half, put some good old butter on that, and just slather some of the steak Diane on top of that and eat it. I'm sure you guys could even come up with more ways. Those are just basically the 2 ways that I have enjoyed. I heard another one. That I have enjoyed this dish. So just to give you guys a couple ideas of what to do with it. This is another amazing, unexpected flavor to have on your pantry shelves ready to go. And I hope you will give this a try. You won't be sorry. Well guys, thanks so much for visiting with me again as I shared yet another unexpected amazing canning recipe in honor of Canuary from my little vintage kitchen to yours. I really do enjoy sharing different flavor profiles, things that you might not expect, because I think those are the best hidden gems to have on the pantry shelves. And judging by the response I'm seeing from you guys so far, I'm thinking you love these bold flavor explosions as well. Who doesn't love the unexpected? And on those nights when we're in a hurry, why should we settle for something bland or something quick or even something unhealthy like fast food just because it's easier? We have these gorgeous jars on our shelf for a reason, and elevating the flavor profile to something that you just, out of this world. Does it get any better than that? Because I'm really not thinking it does. Now, next week's Canuary I'm going to be sharing is an amazing recipe. And I know, I say that about all of them, but they all really are. I love them all. But next week's is super special. And it's super special because it's usually a dish we only think about once a year. And I say, why is that? This is too good to just be eaten once a year. There has to be a way to enjoy it all year long, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Well, thanks again for joining me, and if you're new to my channel, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button and joining our little community here. I do make a new video every week. You never know what it's going to be about, but one thing is for sure, it's always about creating my handmade home one day at a time. That could be with recipes, with DIYs, with projects, designs, remodeling and makeover, or more importantly, canning. And if you like what you saw today, please give me a thumbs up. That just helps my channel become a little bit more relevant and helps others find it a little bit easier and enjoy the same content you are. Kind of doing me a little favor, and I'd super appreciate it. Again, thank you for joining me in my little vintage kitchen as I celebrated another week of Canuary with you guys. And this time we canned up steak Diane. This will soon become an absolute flavor favorite in your household. I promise it will be something you want to keep on your shelves. I'm not good and consistent about it. I don't always have it, but I've been making it for a long time, and I can promise you, you're gonna love it. Thanks again for popping by, and I'll see you guys real soon. Bye.